guys, what is going on? Blossom's back, and welcome back to the channel for something quite interesting today. I want to talk about this car right here, the Hyundai Rouge. Now, I do apologize if I did say the name wrong. I tried to pronounce it correctly by watching a couple of videos online, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I tend to struggle with saying the name Hyundai Rouge. I think every other video I get roasted for my pronunciation of Hyundai. I do try my best, though. I really do. But anyway, guys, a lot of you guys tend to enjoy my prize car autobiographies, and I do enjoy making them from time to time. Sometimes I actually, to be honest, sometimes I don't actually enjoy making the prize car autobiographies. Usually if it's because of a prize car that I don't really care about or want to learn about, then sometimes I'm like forcing myself to do it. But I decided, you know what, let's try something different today. I do want to make an autobiography for, a car that I do really enjoy. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a prize car from Top Drives, right? It just could be a regular car from Top Drives. And in my opinion, after doing a lot of research on this car, I'm actually surprised that it isn't a prize car because of how significant this car is to Hyundai, to South Korea, and honestly just in the car industry as a whole. This car is really freaking cool in my opinion, so I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. So let's get into that. So I'm turning my camera off for this one because there's going to be a lot of things that I do want to show off, so I want to utilize the whole screen. So let's talk about this Hyundai. Well, it was introduced in 2018 at the Geneva Motor Show. I've never seen any of these in real life. I really wish I did though. And the main aspects about this car was that Hyundai wanted to showcase four main things according to their website: proportion, architecture, styling, and technology, and what Hyundai could do in the industry and what they could change up. Now, what makes this car so significant in my opinion is that it firstly propels Hyundai's design language. So basically, like, Hyundai was known as this kind of budget brand that was following its competitors before 2018, like 2012 to 2015, competing against cars like, the Toyota Camry and the Nissan Altima, Subaru Legacy, blah, blah, blah. So Hyundai wanted to change that. They wanted to change how their cars look. They wanted to propel their cars into the modern era with, this stylish designs and, heavy use of LED, blah, blah, blah. And also it thrusts Hyundai's brand image internationally. I think that with this change, Hyundai became known for being a lot more luxurious. They became, a lot more stylish and classy. That's my opinion, but I think a lot of people tend to agree as well. So let's talk about the design. So the main thing about this Rouge, and again, it's a concept car, never really went into production, but it was used as this foundation for the future of what Hyundai's would look like. And they were really focusing on, many things. Streamline was one of them. They wanted the entire car to seem seamless and sporty and classy. So streamline is the word that came to mind. And according to Hyundai, they use this thing called, they call it sensuous sportiness. Basically, it looks like a GT car. I think that sensuous sportiness is a great way to describe most GT cars. But usually when you think of Hyundai, you don't think of GT cars. You think of GT cars, you think of, well, Maserati or Aston Martin, the DBS Superleggera, or even the M8. So yeah, I mean, Hyundai was stepping into, in my opinion, they were stepping into a new playground, a more luxurious, a more refined playground, right? And then in the interior of the car, they use this thing called tube architecture, and it makes sense because, as you can see in the shapes of the seats and everything, it seems to follow this kind of tube, this kind of oval, almost like a elongated egg. I'm no designer, so my terms might be a little bit weird, but they're very literal in the sense where I think of a elongated egg, not leg. But it is very, very cool nonetheless. So more about the design history of this car. I feel like it takes cues from an Aston Martin, from multiple Aston Martins. So I think that the back of the Rouge reminds me of like an Aston Martin Zagato. We're about the shooting break, but it reminds me of the Zagato. It's very stylish, it's aggressive, but it's not completely spherical. I feel like a lot of cars before 2018, even today, but mostly kind of during 2012 to 2017, kind of that half-decade era, a lot of cars were looking very spherical. They were very round, very circular. And I think that Hyundai wanted to move away from that, so we're kind of going for this like teardrop look almost. But I feel like the back took design cues from the Zagato. It's very muscular, but it's also very classy, very fluid. And the front, in my opinion, reminds reminds me of an Aston Martin Lagonda Taraf. I mean, I think that is very, very obvious, especially in terms of the grille, that those two cars look very similar. But again, if you're going to take design cues from another brand, I think Aston Martin is probably one of the best options to take it from. So moving on now, I want to talk about, you know, kind of the significance of the Hyundai Leffe Rouge. And I feel like when it comes to Hyundai, they have three cars, I would say, that they, according to their website, hold as very significant boulders in their design. The first one was the Pony from 1974, next one being the Leffe Rouge from 2018, and then now we have the N74 that was released last year. And you can see that, you know, it really goes from one step to the next. From 1974, from this wedge design, it kind of gets like smoothed out in 2018, the Leffe Rouge, and then it's kind of funny, it's going full circle almost. They're going back to the wedge design in 2022. But according to their website, these are the three most significant cars, and it does make sense because the name Leffe Rouge, according to Hyundai at least, it means like it's a connector, right? So, you know, according to this quote, the design Leffe Rouge is the foundation for the Tucson, and it was a landmark, but it also meant that it was like a thread, like Hyundai thinks that it's a common thread, like that's what it means, and it like combines their design language from the past to the present, like it connects, you know, their design language from the past to the present to the future. And we can see with these three cars, you know, the past being the Pony, the present from this quote being the Leffe Rouge, and obviously the future now being the N74, which is our present day. So I think this was really cool that they've really committed to this theme. But anyway, moving on to their design. So why I felt that the Hyundai was so significant, or the Leffe Rouge was so significant to Hyundai, was, like I said, it was the foundation for what was to come. And as you can see, I think one really interesting shift was in one of Hyundai's most, I guess, widespread, their most influential models, and that's the Sonata. So in 2015 to 17 was the 7th generation of the Hyundai Sonata, and then the 8th generation that came out in 2020, 2023 looked so much significantly better, and I think it was because of the foundation of the Leffe Rouge. So as you can see, from the 2015-2017 model, it looked like your everyday budget sedan. Like the sides were really flat. It looked cheap. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't much to be surprised by, or to be aroused by, for lack of a better word. It was very basic. You know, I felt that the 7th gen was really boring. It basically tried to follow its competition, but not try and be something different. And then, you know, came the introduction of the 2018 Leffe Rouge, and they implicated those design languages into the 8th generation car. And as you can see, the back looks a lot more seamless, the side of the car looks a lot more muscular, and also the grille was a lot bigger, and the lights and everything kind of just were a lot more seamless. They were a lot more extravagant in their wheel design as well. The rims look a lot more sporty as compared to the basic design of the 7th generation. So I just feel like that step forward in design was because of the Leffe Rouge. Moving on from this as well, as you can see, adding on to this, the next 8th generation, it's funny though, because both of these Sonatas are both considered 8th generation. So this one over here is 2020 to 2023, and then this one is going to be 2024 and onwards. And I think from here we can see, like, in the 2023 model, it really took design cues from the front, and that was really about it. Maybe the back was a lot more muscular as well, yes, but in the 2024 model, as you can see, the car looks a lot more streamlined. It almost looks like it doesn't deserve to be with the competition that it's competing with. And what is that competition? Well, I'll tell you right now. According to Car and Driver, the Hyundai Sonata was always competing with cars like the Subaru Legacy and the Nissan Altima and the Toyota Camry. And back in 2016, as you can see, the Hyundai wasn't the standout car. In my opinion, the standout car was the Toyota Camry. It was the only car that looked slightly different. Everything else looked about the same, you know, like the mid-size grille, kind of the flat body shape, you know, they didn't look very sporty. They looked cheap. That was the thing, right? These cars looked like budget sedans, with the Camry being the only car that stood out a little bit more of its bigger grille, its more angular and muscular design shape. But you know, the Subaru Legacy and the Altima and the Sonata, I mean, they all were a dime a dozen, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't trying to be different. That being said though, after the introduction of the Lefty Rouge, and after, you know, they changed the design language, I think it's pretty obvious to tell which car stands out in 2024 or 2023 and 2024. Subaru still looks really boring in my opinion, looking like their older models from years past. Nissan, honestly, I dig the shape of the Altima. It does look really cool. Toyota, I feel like it's taken a little bit of a step back. You know, it doesn't look as muscular. I don't like the front. Everything just looks compressed and it's going towards the middle. But definitely, I think without a doubt, the 8th generation Sonata, or I guess you can call it the 8th generation facelift of the Sonata, because it looks like the Sonata has 2 different facelifts in terms of their 8th generation models. Just, it stands out. And if anything, I can't believe that it's still competing with these 3 cars, but it is. You know, it looks so much nicer. It looks so much more classy. The front reminds me of a Urus, and the back reminds me of a Porsche, like a 911. And the entire shape of it just reminds me of, you know, it's taking cues from the Lefty Rouge, basically. So, and the wheels look a lot more sporty as well. It definitely looks like the best car here. And I feel like this is because of that foundation piece. Going back to the main thing about the video, which is the Lefty Rouge. Another thing that Hyundai wants to implement into all of their modern day models is this thing called light architecture, right? So, you know, all these LEDs, I mean, every single brand in today's market literally is just LEDs, right? And lots of it, copious amounts of it as well. And although the Lefty Rouge never ended up being your mass-produced sport model, which I wish they did, you can tell that its design features were seeped into today's brand. So cars like the Hyundai Grandeur, as well as the Tucson, like, it just looks so good in my opinion. Because of this car, I think that Hyundai's today just look better. They kind of have their own image, you know what I mean? So moving on from this, I want to talk about a couple of quotes for this car. The first one was from Evo. Now, I feel like this is pretty significant considering that, you know, Evo is, I think, a partner for Hutch and Top Drives and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, British car magazine Evo noted that Hyundai's design team had gone for revolution rather than evolution. I think that's a really good way to say it, you know, because I'm free speeching everything here, but obviously people had time to write the quotes out with the Lefty Rouge, and it was a radical departure from its current models. I completely agree. Hyundai's before the Lefty Rouge looked cheap. They look mass produced. They look like nobody really put any care into their design. But Hyundai's after the Lefty Rouge, they looked a lot more stylish and classy, extravagant, and streamlined. So one of their quotes was, the Hyundai Lefty Rouge concept is a long, elegant 4-door coupe, and it certainly seems to represent a radical departure from Hyundai's current design themes. And I think that's really true. But I think a quote that's even more significant than one from Evo is one from a South Korean himself, from Lee. It's kind of funny because Lee literally didn't know that I was making this video. I started making this presentation before I even asked him the question, but then today, I made it yesterday, but today I asked him the question, like, oh, you know, I was like, oh, it'd be pretty cool to just ask Lee what he thinks about this brand, if anything at all, or about the car, or if anything at all. And I asked Lee, I was like, hey, Lefty Rouge, you know, the car from the game, the RQ49, like, is there anything that you think about it? Like, do you think it's cool or something? I thought he was just gonna say something like, oh yeah, the Hyundai's cool, you know, something like that. But no, look at the passion in this, man. He typed so much. Like, this was not even like I would say this is like 40% of everything that he said. But yeah, as you can see, Lee says at first though, people were disappointed that the actual model was not as the concept. I mean, that's true. I wish that, you know, the Lefty Rouge was the actual car. But then they realized that Hyundai tried hard to keep its hype by, you know, basically they started making a commercial release of the model. So basically, like, they were distributing its design language into their commercially based cars, right? Like the Sonata, for example, or the Tucson, or the Elantra, right? He says that in conclusion, he thinks that the Lefty Rouge concept is the most influential car in Hyundai's design history, especially in Korea, because, you know, it basically influenced the Sonata, which is Hyundai's most popular model, you know what I mean? Which is just absolutely incredible. So yeah, truly, dude, like, this is a really amazing car. So what do I think about the Hyundai in conclusion? Well, let me tell you. Well, ultimately, I believe that the Hyundai Leffe Rouge is the brand's most significant car of the century. Hyundai knew exactly what they were doing when they were designing this car, and it's evident from what they chose to name it by. The car was not only a bridge that transported its design language from one style to the next, it was a bridge that propelled Hyundai's image on an international scale. Hyundai went from being a budget brand that was struggling to emulate its competitors to becoming a brand that set the trends for its rivals to follow. The Leffe Rouge is bold, extravagant, and isn't afraid of being different, and Hyundai owes it to themselves and the model for their increased appeal and class in the eyes of today's market. Personally, I think Hyundai is cool. However, that wasn't always the case, and I owe it to the Leffe Rouge for shifting my expectations for the brand, as I believe that because of this car, Hyundai's present day lineup in the market looks classier, more stylish, seamless, and luxurious. It tells me that the brand cares about being more than just a budget carrier, and that they are striving for a more prestigious legacy for decades to come. The whispers literally went from, or you could get a Hyundai, to why don't you get a Hyundai? So yeah guys, I just hope that you enjoyed this kind of video. It's kind of different from, you know, the usual content that I make. Take it as like a elongated version of a prize car autobiography that isn't for a prize car. But if I were to just give you my personal thoughts, I really feel like this car should have been a prize car. It is so incredibly significant to Hyundai and to South Korea and to the South Korean people. Like, I don't understand why it isn't a prize car. And also, one other thing that I really don't understand is I don't know how Hutch got the stats for this car. Like, you know, when I did all my research for this car online to tell you about its history and design and everything today, not a single post online talked about its engine or what it could have had. So I really do not know how Hutch decided to you know, assume its stats for how it is in the game. I feel like it could be a super rare, ultra rare, epic, and Hutch is kind of just saying what they want to do with the car. But honestly, like, it's so incredibly significant, and you know, it would be cool if it was a prize car. I mean, at the same time, I guess it's cool that it isn't, because then I can collect, you know, 5, 6, 7 if I really want to. But I genuinely feel that this car is incredibly significant to Hyundai. I feel like you guys could take a shot for every time I say significant in this video, and you'd be dead by now as well. I'll try and say something different. This car's influential. It's ridiculously influential. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm gonna stay safe, and I hope you enjoyed this kind of video. If you want me to make a video like this for maybe another model in the future, let me know down in the comments below. The funny thing about this video was that I actually wanted to make this video surround 2 brands, like 2 models. Like, I was gonna do the Leffe Rouge and another brand that I thought was really cool, another model that I thought was really cool. But you know, the more research I did for this car, you know, the more interested I got about it, the more information that I collected, and this video just became its own. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm gonna stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac.